Public service extends back to previously serving as the state's 47th Lieutenant Governor from 2017 to 2018, as well as 6 years in the Missouri Senate and another 6 years in the Missouri House. You could do 2 more years in the Senate. Before heading to Glen City in 2005, he served more than 22 years in law enforcement, including 12 as a Polk County Sheriff. As a lawmaker, Parson's priorities had included sponsoring or co-sponsoring legislation concerning the Second Amendment rights, Missourians' right to farm, and improvements to economic and workforce development throughout the state. A veteran who spent 6 years in the U.S. Army, Parson was raised on a farm in Hickory County and graduated from Wheaton High School. He currently owns and operates a cattle farm near Bolivar with his wife, First Lady Teresa. They have 2 grown children and 6 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Governor Parson.
Well, good day, everyone. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope you're enjoying it here at the mansion. And kind of the First Lady's not down here, but man, they've done a lot here to make it a little bit more enjoyable, or redoing the mansion from about every aspect of it, I think, to do it. So I'm glad you're all here today. I got to tell you a little story about one of my old friends that used to be in the newspaper business in Bolivar, Missouri. He's probably the only guy that I know of in my career that has thrown an ink pen and a notebook at me while I'm driving a car. That'd be you, Dave Barry, just so you know. You know, it's kind of hard to get in front of you guys sometimes, because you, at the end of the day, you get a lot more ink than what I got. But the thing I was telling Dave a story one time, and I was lying through my teeth, I'll be honest about it. And I was sheriff back home, and I told him, hey, why don't you ride over with me, we'll go check out this deal. And we're going over there back then, the local papers, they'd ride with you, and they'd write all the news of the week. And Dave, Sheriff, what's going on? I told him about these pigs that got stole down to the sale barn, and I went on this lengthy story. And I mean, he's just eating it up. And thank goodness I'm in the front, and he's in the back seat, because I could have never kept a straight face. And he writes this down, he writes that. And then he starts asking questions. Well, what about this? What about that? So I have to make up this whole story. But at the end of the day, it was not real, and he didn't like the joke that I pulled on him, and he is a very poor sport when it comes to doing that. But good friend for a long time.
Go ahead and tell them the punchline.
Oh, come on, man. Hey, I can't tell a joke that eats up, how much time I got here? That eats up my time. So you can't ask too many questions. Well, the punchline was this. I told him there's these pigs that got stolen out of the sale barn. This guy stole them. He said he put them in the back of an old truck. And he said he started going down the road in them. And the owner says, hey, some guy just stole my pigs out of the sale barn, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, then we got involved in it. The guys got in pursuit. The deputies did chase this guy down the gravel road. He took down this gravel road, high-speed chase. Guys jump out of the car. Guy jumps out of the car, comes to a dead end, jumps out there, pulls out a pistol, shoots all the hogs in the back of the truck, and he takes off running over the field. Deputies go after him, carry him down, and all that kind of stuff. Now keep in mind, this sort of goes on for 20 minutes. And Dave's writing on it. And Dave said, well, you guys get him? Yeah, I got him. He said, well, how come the guy got out and he shot the pigs? I said, so they wouldn't squeal on it. So that's the moral of the story. I think he did write that story here. I'm not sure. I think he did a little bit of this. Okay, I'll click that. But a little recap. I guess yesterday after the state of the state and kind of finishing up my last year of all the things that we've been through. I think one of the things, Scott Walker was the governor of Wisconsin one time, and I heard him speak to the event. When he then was the governor of Wisconsin, or maybe it just lost the election, I can't remember. But one of the things he told all governors, he says you should always talk. He said at some point in your career you need to go back and talk about all the things that have occurred that's been positive for everyone. He says because most of the time what always happens, and the little truth is, you always go on to the next crisis, you always go on to the next event, the legislative session, the budget, you're just constantly moving forward. And I remember him telling me that as we went back to recap everything we've been through, and the way I become governor, as you all know that story, and to go through all the things we've been through. I mean, as you heard in the state of the state, it's just been nonstop for a job that I kind of never asked for in the first place. But the reality of it is I do believe there's a purpose for things that happen. And for whatever reason at that time, I was put in this role as a governor. You know, and whatever you do, whoever the governor is, there's always gonna be controversial issues that you go through. But I think you take that to the side, you take politics to the side, and you really look at what is it have you really done for everyday people? What is it where you really moved the needle in the state? And that's not something that probably makes the news all the time, I would say. It's just because we live in a world anymore where it's like what draws everybody's attention, what's controversy and all that thing. But I think as governor, you do have an opportunity to just be able to step back sometimes and say, why don't we just do things that benefit everybody? You know, and we've had so many of those wins, I want to say wins since I've been governor. I wasn't planning on any of that stuff, you know. The one thing I will tell you that I had the liberty to do that most governors probably, I hope never have to go through it again. But I joke around this a little bit on the campaign trail a little bit. I didn't promise anybody anything to be governor. I simply got to walk in the governor's office someday and say, what is it you want to do? What is it you did? And we picked workforce development, and you know the rest of the story becomes history. But I will tell you, those two things right there are the foundation, I believe, for good government. And those are the things that will move your state forward. Now, anybody can be the naysayers, can be the critics, like I said that, but I'm telling you, the policies we put in place worked. And we see that today. So I hope whoever the next administration is, we continue to do those things to be able to do it. Like I said, you know, providing child care. That's not a Democrat or Republican issue. That's just an issue that's good for the state of Missouri. It's good for everyday people out there. You know, building roads, building bridges, airports. Those are good for everyone. Everybody wants a good street to live on. Everybody wants good infrastructure. Everybody wants to be able to get on the internet. You know, so when you look at those kind of things and you try to prepare people for a job, we have for so long, in my opinion, and I'm one of them. So let me say, I graduated from Lethal High School. Everybody knows that. You know the history. I don't have a college degree. It's okay if you don't have a college degree. I don't want you to ever read to say, "Oh, Governor Parson don't want people to go to college." That's not the truth at all. I want people to realize there's a future. You can be successful without one. You have to have some skill training? Yes, you do. You're probably gonna have to go either get that skill, that certificate, or go to community college or whatever it is. But you don't have to feel like you've gotta go to a four-year institution to be successful in life anymore, because we know that's not the case. And if you look at the workforce tomorrow, it's gonna be based more on the workforce and the corporations of what they want than what we as government wants. It's gonna be, what do I want to be able to hire somebody? And how do I continue their education? So you see a big swing in that. So, again, as I went through some of the things we've been able to do for the state, I'm proud of it. I really am. I'm proud of the staff that's worked for me for so long to go through all the things we went through. Not to say there's not been bumps in the road, because there sure has. And you know, I've hit a few of them too. I haven't been perfect by no means as governor. But I tell you, the one thing in the speech yesterday that I did, and I think the people that know me best, I would say, and some of you have been exposed to a lot about who I am. You really have. Some of you said that I did look into my life a little bit. But you know, it really is about just putting people first. And if you're governor and you realize how important that is, it's not about Parson. It wasn't about Nixon. It wasn't about Blunt. It wasn't about any governor's last name. It's always about the office of governor. And I know the question is going to come up today about the Senate. There was a one-liner in there. That was pretty slick too, to be able to do that. I know that question will probably come up today. But here's what I think is important about being a public servant. And I want all of you to try to take home with you if you can. Anybody that comes to Jeff City, and everybody gets to sit in one of those chairs out there. It's in the House, the Senate, statewide, or the governor's office. Very few people ever get to sit in those seats. Very few. In the history of our state. The day you come there, you will be the most humble person in the world to get to know that you're the one that gets the honor to sit in that seat. Because people back home trust you. All legislators, all statewide, need to remember where they came from and why they come here in the first place. Because I tell you what, you wouldn't act the way you do in the chambers today, you wouldn't dare act that way at home. You don't. It's the reality. You get in this building, all of a sudden, You think you're a little better, you're a special person because you're in this building. You're not. You come here to be a public servant. That's simple. And you need to remember that. And you're not gonna make everybody happy. Not gonna happen. You know, so you do the best you can, and you try to set a path forward, and I think we've done that. And, you know, again, I was joking about the book a while ago, that they're writing a book, a biography. And I would say, and all of you are very good at what you do, writing things, and writing stories, and putting news media together. Here's the one thing I would tell all of you, especially some of you that's maybe got gray hair like I got, or don't have hair like I got. Not gonna pick on anybody. But here's what I would tell you. Every one of us should write your story down. Because every one of us has a unique journey that we have been through to get to where you are today. Even some of you young men and women that are in here. You should think about that, because there's a story to be told, if not for everybody, maybe for the families, maybe for, but each one of us have our own history. As I went back and did the bio of myself, to come from where I came from, my mom and dad to be sharecroppers, to be the 57th government state of Missouri. Nobody takes that road, but you can take that road. That road's available for anybody. You just gotta understand, nobody is gonna give you anything. And if you write your story, you'll find out people help you along the way, but nobody's probably give you anything. You probably got to where you got to today to set these tables because you worked for it, or you had the opportunity to be here, is what it said. So I think those are important. I think it's important for the legislators. I think it does. And I think it's important for all of you guys to remember how you got to where you got. So the book's coming out, whether you like me or not, or whether you support me or not, I don't care, but I do want you to buy the book. Because my biggest fear is all these books are going to be sitting in my garage at home when I get out, and I can't even pull my car in there. So I really need you to buy the book. You'll find it entertaining. One of your colleagues, I just told the story, and now you don't have to buy the book because I just told you one of the stories in the book to be able to do that. That's the only good thing I can think of there. Okay, so quit with the talk. You heard this day. You know what I'm saying. You know what's going on. So time's yours. Let's ask some questions, and I'll try to come up with some answers.
Governor, you brought up the Senate, so let's go right there. As you know, there is dysfunction of an unprecedented nature over there. It has gotten to the point where this week the pro tem called one of the 7 members of the Freedom Caucus swamp creature. The majority leader has threatened to expel people, or at least prefers to do that sort of thing. That's pretty bad. You had a list of gubernatorial appointments sitting over there right now. People who you asked to do something and they said they would. How much of what is going on in that Senate is a problem for you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know it's a problem for me. I mean, to be right honest about it. And here's why I say that, because I think they want to drag me into this battle. There is a reason you have a legislative branch and an executive branch. And you got to be very careful when you start trying to run one or the other. So I do that. There's no question the Senate has problems. There's no question. My appointments, they call them governor's appointment, but you gotta understand where the appointment process come from. It's because the legislators passed the legislation to appoint these people and make these committees and make the opportunities that they have to serve. That comes from the legislative branch. These are not just people I just said, hey, I'm gonna put you out here on this committee or something. These are things that went through the process. So they all did. And to go along with that, to answer that question, most every senator over there has wrote me recommendation letters of people on the appointments. Even the people that you could say is holding up the Senate, I have their letters saying, I support this person. So the only people you're punishing when you do that is everyday people. Can you imagine people coming across this state, whether it's Southeast Missouri, whether it's Kansas City, St. Louis, Southwest, Central? These people are basically the vast majority of them volunteering to come up here to do a public service, is what they're doing. So if the leverage is trying to leverage saying, hey, we're not going to do the governor's appointment, it's not about the governor's office. It's about the function of government that the legislative branch put forward. It's just part of the process I get to do. If the people don't get appointed, I mean, there's options we can do to keep them in the places they're in, and we will. They're good people. The point of it is, they're not doing anything wrong. Nobody has anything against them, yet they're in the crossfires of what's going on here politically, internally. And that's not right. It's just simply not right to treat people that way. They don't have anything to do with this stuff. You know, you got people that serve in the mental health categories, nonprofits, law enforcement, healthcare, all the functions that you do to keep everyday people's lives going to have that. Not to give them the opportunity to do it. You have to get people to serve on those committees, but most of them, like I said, don't pay. People just want to do this. And like, you know, I'm sure they're sitting at home scratching their head, well, how come you're holding up me? What I do? So that's the portion of it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
If I may follow up.
Yeah.
You put forth a rather ambitious budget yesterday, one that drew praise from House Democrats, believe it or not. How concerned are you that that could get held hostage to election year politics, Senate discussion?
You know, look, anytime you put yourself out there as the governor and you put your priorities out there, you know that there could be some people leveraging against you. That's nothing too new. At the end of the day, you hope what you're trying to do, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, you're trying to do what's best for the people of the state. So you hope you always figure out, is there a way to work to do that? And I think when you look at the workforce development pieces, the infrastructure pieces, there's been people that says, hey, I'm not supporting that because it's more money or you're going into debt, all these kind of things. But you have to figure out how do you work through them. So it is an election year, you know, you've been covering this for a long time. You know, election years are their own year in themselves. You know, I don't know what'll happen, but I don't know that I have a lot on the table that has to be done. You know, we'd like to get the budget through there. We just like to, somebody at some point kind of come up with a little common sense and say, okay, we need to do these things. And they'll have to fight your battles. I can't fix the Senate. I think that's what everybody's looking at, because a lot of people say, hey, Governor, when are you going to step in? When are you going to do this? You know, it's not my place to do that, and like the Constitution basically says, you're not supposed to do that. I give them guidance, I give advice, I'll say something. If they ever don't believe they're going to follow the Constitution, that's probably when I get. So if you say, I'm not going to do the budget, then I would probably step in and say, you got to do the budget. That's the Constitution says that. The signature. We don't have the option. Okay. Yes.
Kelly Hobbs with the Career Tribune. You spoke about childcare, and it should be a bipartisan issue. What do you want to see? You know, we talk about you've seen a lot of bills going to the finish line this year, possibly.
Right.
But that sounds like that's one that really has hit a chord with you. What do you want to see?
Yeah, I want to see it get across the finish line. So now when I say that, everybody's going to know that, but they pretty well know that. You know.
What are the details? What can you share?
Well, let me give you a broader view of how I see that, why I think that's important. I don't think it's always going to be government's job to take care of children in that facility. What I'm looking at is why we do tax credits. I want to partner with the private sector. Businesses have just as much obligation to keep their employees at work as we do. So if I can partner with them to say, if you could put a daycare together, let's take in my hometown, we have CMH at the hospital, and you have the Bobber School System, are the two largest employers in town. Let's just say, why don't you guys put a daycare together for all your employees, for everyone in our town, and we'll help you with tax credits. We don't want to be the one to run it, we want you to on the local levels to do it. That's kind of some of the ways we want to do tax credit. The people that are currently in business, we want to make sure they can stay afford to be in business, but it's a tough circle, because you want to make sure they get enough fees to be able to keep going, but yet you want it to be affordable for the families. So you've got to be able to figure out how to do that. So how can we help bridge that gap is where I see that happening. I think you want to look outside the box. I mean, you know, government, we've got too much tendency to rely on government to do everything. And government's really not just real good at anything. I mean, I'm not serious. I mean, we're not very, if you look at us in the business world, we don't function very well. But anytime you can start partnering with the private sector and helping them, we're much better off. So, and I think you see that time and time out. But that chapter is a big deal. That's a big deal for all of us. I you know, my little granddaughter couldn't come this week. You know, for the state to say, not that she cares, she's 4 years old. She just knows her friends up there talking a lot. But the point of it is, she was sick. So where do you take that sick child to for a day or two? Okay? Can't take them to daycare. You don't even have the resources, so you gotta have family, you gotta take them somewhere. And then there's a day comes when you just need to drop the kid off somewhere because the boss says, hey, I need you to go do this. Those are the kind of things we can prevent from happening. That's a little bit of the big picture, small things, but big things if you're the one that's out there trying to search for somebody for your child. That you trust. Okay, somebody has a question? Yes.
Hi, Elise Smile with the Post Dispatch. There's a number of, school choice measures that are kind of moving around and wondering, if there's, a measure in particular that you hope makes it to your desk. And in my mind, I'm thinking about, open enrollment, private school vouchers, and charter schools.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I said all along and say this. I don't care where a child gets an education. I don't care if it's charter, public, private, Christian. I don't care as long as you're getting a quality education. However you get there, you get there. You know, and we gotta figure out how to do that. I'll even make that a little deeper thing. If you wanna change society, if you really wanna do that, if you wanna change crime, if you wanna change healthcare, of all the things. Here's what I do know. If you keep doing the same thing we've been doing for decades, you're gonna have the same results. If you don't get a child an education somehow, some way, in some form, you're never gonna change that. So, I don't care where a kid gets it, I don't know what lives, I'm not even gonna speculate on what comes to my desk in the year, because you know as well as I do, who knows what that'll look like, so, like I said, as long as it's benefiting a child, you know, I'm gonna look at everything, wherever it is. And if you've got a failing school system, you know, you've got a failing school system, no way to sugarcoat it, you're not doing a good job, so we need to find alternatives.
I do have another question, totally unrelated. Representative Quaid, put out a release yesterday, I believe, about, an aluminum smelter in the boot heel. And it says here, I believe somewhere that, she has talked to you about that, and now she's putting forward a measure to try to keep that open. I'm just wondering, what you can share about maybe those conversations and what you know about that situation.
Is she running for governor? I mean, I just curious what she did the rest of Southeast Missouri, it's a long way from Springfield. I think she did send me a letter on it, is what she sent on that issue. We'll see. You know, I gotta ask that question a little bit, but to answer that, you know, we need, if we're gonna partner with businesses, you know, for whatever reason that might be, and we've been down in that country before going through similar things with this, you know, it's gotta be a good deal for taxpayers. You know, we're not gonna bail anybody out of anything. But if it's a private business sector and we can partner with them and really make something work, then I'm all open to listen to that. But we're a long way from that at this point to be able to do that. But we're just not gonna give somebody millions of dollars of money because things are not looking good. I mean, you know, you gotta weigh all that stuff out. Is it a good deal for taxpayers? I'm gonna go back to the business environment plus the government environment. All right, I mean, you have a question right in front, but I'm gonna come over here, you let me know.
Yeah, Governor, there's another number of.
Where are you from? You guys know where?
Yeah, it's South Lucas Press in Southeast Missouri.
Southeast, oh, they're talking about Southeast.
That's right, that's right, yeah. Number of governors, have been supporting Texas and they're about to secure the border. Any conversations with Texas Governor Abbott, and your thoughts on what's going on at the border?
Governor Abbott is a good friend. I think a great deal of him, and I think everything he is doing right now is the things he should be doing. And I would stand arm in arm with Governor Abbott. If people were coming into Missouri, unknown people crossing in, I would do everything I could to keep the people of my state safe. The open border that we have now is a disastrous policy of what's happening. There is no logic whatsoever behind this. This will have such an effect on our states down the road. You know, I don't know if it was accurate or not. I read a piece last night from the media somewhere that they said, I think that number's up to like 7, 8 billion right now that's come over the border. Does that sound right? I don't know. Don't hold me to that number. But let me put you that in state form. Missouri has 6 million people. If it is 7 or 8 million, it's probably the 13th largest state in the nation. That's how many people's coming across there. And by the time you try to states to fund that, the federal government's not going to fund all that. You know, it's just something I can't imagine being governor Abbott's shoes when you see people coming across the border. You're dealing with cartel and you're dealing with bad people. I'm not saying all these people are bad people coming across. I'm not saying that at all. You don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, that's evident. You know, yeah, I'd protect Missouri borders and I'd stick up for Governor Abbott to be able to do whatever it takes to secure the people of Texas.
So I believe in the summer, you sent some National Guard troops down to the border, is that correct?
Yep.
And do you intend to still send more right now, or is that on the table, or?
I like the word on the table. I'll just leave it at that, okay? All right, I mean, you know, we're always looking to help fellow governors. You know, people offer to help us at times when needed, so, you know, well, I just believe that is an overwhelming situation for the people.
Governor, just a point of clarification on Dennis Ellsworth. Are you certain that Governor Abbott right now is saying he doesn't want to comply with the court order, a federal court order, in regard to the razor wire situation and the access to the border? Are you saying you also support him in defying that
No.
order? I didn't think so. I want to make.
I didn't say that at all.
Okay.
I'm saying when you take an oath as a governor, your oath is to protect the Constitution of your state and protect the people, citizens of your state.
Okay.
Above all. And I think you've got that dilemma where you're gonna have to figure this thing out, you know. Is people dying over this, and is people's lives being lost over this, and, you know, what is the outcome of that? I mean, you have got the classic case of a state issue, is what you're gonna have, under the 10th Amendment, I guess, if you wanna say that for a better term. And this is what this is gonna come down to. And I think you're gonna find a lot of states that are gonna probably be with Governor Abbott, and you're gonna have a lot that's gonna be the federal government. But it is a difficult situation when the Supreme Court made the decision they made. You still, as governor, that doesn't change the safety of the people. So you still can't just stand by and let bad things happen to the people in your state. I just don't think you can do that.
There's a conflict there with the Supreme Court. I mean, are you saying he ought to continue to seek court resolution of that, or just defy the
Oh,
court?
I think they will. I think they'll do whatever they can or try to figure out some way to be able to do it. I don't know the answers to that, but, I just think it is a very, very, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. And I don't, you know, these are one of these issues that truly can split a nation. So we gotta be careful how we handle this. All right, yes, you can wait.
Yes, Garvey Edina. Statewide, and especially in rural schools, there is an issue with a teacher shortage. And this month, Wellington Napoleon, a traditionally very high-achieving school district, after a very contentious process, went to 4-day weeks, not because anyone wanted that, but because they feel it's the only way that they can get teachers. They participate in all of the programs available, the 38,000 career ladder, different grants that they've received, but they're still at having about 10% of their teachers on critical shortage and conversations about consolidation if they can't get enough teachers in that school district. And in every conversation they asked, where's the state? So what more do you feel the state can do to get teachers into Missouri?
Let me answer that a couple of ways. So I think it's important to understand that I'm a firm believer in public education. I do. And I believe in all, like I said, I believe in all avenues like a good kid, because everything's different. You go to rural Missouri, and you go to my hometown, and you take a Fair Play or Bolivar, it's the only thing in town, the school is. You can't shut it down, because there's no other place to go. It's not like you've got other options. That school is the option. People are willing to pay extremely lot of money to keep the doors open in the schools. So when I become governor, let me talk about teachers. When I become governor, the base pay for a teacher in the state was $25,000. Is what it is. Let me put that, 25,000, you hear 25,000, 35, 40,000. 25,000 is $12 an hour. You can go anywhere in your town, little towns, like where I'm from, and you can go do about any job in that town for $12 an hour. And we're expecting people to get educated and be able to teach our kids skills that they need to have, basic skills, are what we want, let me put it that way. We'll argue what they get taught some other day, but to be able to do that. So we've taken that 25,000 up to 40,000. So yesterday I took that number over, so that's 15,000 increase. When I bring the base up to 40,000, here's what happens. You force the schools and the other teachers in there to pay more. Because all of it is not just compress things, and that's just the way it works. It worked that way when I was in the sheriff's office, and I want to get the guys on the low end up. But here's what I'll tell you. We've totally fully funded $700 million more in that education formula. We fully funded transportation. Now keep in mind, transportation was never funded until I became governor. That's more money in the system. So at some point, you gotta figure out what is your priorities in that industry and where can schools do a better job of management. And I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, but I'm saying that we can all do better jobs of management. So as your priorities keeping teachers, I don't think a 4-day week makes any difference when you keep good quality teachers. That's me. I don't like a 4-day week, I'll tell you. I think all you're doing is shorting your kids' education. I mean, I think that, and my gosh, if we didn't learn something from COVID, how devastating it is for those kids not to be in a classroom setting, you know, thinking you could shortchange that because of money. I'm not bought on that yet. I'm not sure a lot of them are. I know it's a 4-day week, but you know, you're still in the same parameters, you're in the same money. It's really not saving anything other than if we are really just trying to get a teacher, then let's address that issue. But a 4-day week, don't do that. Unless you just want to work 4 days a week. So that becomes the issue.
Governor, I'm Chris Barker from the Washington Missourian. Do you think it's fair to say that a lot of the school districts that face a threat from policies like open enrollment have the teachers who are making the least amount of money, who are suffering the most from the teacher shortages? And do you think that there's any sort of conflict between open enrollment policies and, you know, saying that teachers need to be paid more and supported?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of moving parts to that piece. First of all, I guess I say, where's that? Where are you talking about that? Yeah. You know, if you do open enrollment, that kind of depends where you're at in the state. Again, that's why education is so difficult. I will guarantee you, and again, I'll refer back to my hometown, but if you did open enrollment, the vast majority, a lot of the kids in a lot of schools are going to go to my hometown. Just a better system. It's got more to offer. If you do, you're going to shut down probably a lot of other places to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to keep it affordable. So it's more of a question, how do you maintain, one, what you have, or is it affordable to do what you have? Now, my mother, I graduated from Wheatland High School, there's about 16 in my senior class. So you got Wheatland, Wablo, and Hermitage, all side by side. Now, I would probably say, oh my gosh, I'm not going to say this in front of me yet. Don't use that name, okay? Don't use that. So if you have 3 school districts like that, maybe there is something to be said about trying to figure out how you combine resources. Maybe you don't need a superintendent for every school. Maybe you don't need all the principals for every school. Maybe there's ways to make adjustments to get to where we need to go to. Now, that doesn't exactly, and if my mom heard me say that, I guarantee you she'd turn over in a hurry. She wouldn't say that. She'd never forgive me for saying that. But I think the open enrollment, I think you got to see how that's going to look when you really get into your legislature, to when it gets to my desk. You know, we'll see how that goes. I mean, there's supporters on each side of it, but I'm going to go back to what I said originally about education. If you're failing education, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in the cities and the communities and the counties, you got to call it the way it is. If you're failing, you're failing. Quit trying to make excuses and figure out how you're going to do it better. Therefore, if you're a parent, what options do you have? That's where all these issues come into place. So, I wish that everybody's doing a good job. I don't know if I answered that, but man, I sure stepped around that pretty good. One more. Yeah, David.
Would you like the legislature, assuming they could get along, would you like them to do something with initiative petition reform, as they call it, to make it harder to pass ballot measures before that abortion rights thing hits the ballot?
Well, I've been a supporter of initiative petitions for a long time. Matter of fact, I handled that legislation for many years. And back then, it did with the Animal Activist rights so that we were using it for. I always think the initiative petition standard should be higher. Now, I can play the devil's advocate to what I just said to you too. The legislation, the legislative branch, does what they're supposed to do, and they make votes one way or the other. Most time initiative petitions come about because they can't make decisions, if you think about it. Because they try to go to the legislative branch and couldn't get it done. So initiative petitions come into back there. I just think what you see today in today's world, regardless whether it's a pro issue or con issue to anybody in this room or even for me. You know, it's mainly driven by big money. A lot of it comes from out of the state, to say the least, to do an issue. You know, so yes, I would like to see the bar higher because of some of those things. I wish the process we're seeing today wouldn't happen, and I wish the legislative process would take a vote, even if it's popular or not popular. I wish it would be, a lot of things would be settled there, but yeah, I think you should raise the bar. I don't think we wanna go changing laws and the Constitution by a small group of attorneys that write it, and that's really what happens. And we, the people, we don't get a chance to say, or to vet that thing out, to say, is this really good in here, or is this bad? Because what do you see in initiative petitions are? Let's talk about the marijuana deal. How many changes are gonna have to be made in that? Totally different than what the initiative petition was, because a lot of issues wasn't addressed, you know, of how you do it. So, you gotta remember when people do initiative petitions, yes, the vocal point of it is a group, but you gotta remember there's a handful of attorneys writing this up for all of us in the state. Why I think it's so important you go through the legislative portion of it, at least people get to come in there and tell their side. They get to testify and say, hey, here's where I think the problem, here's some things you need to adjust, or here's you need to do that. But the legislative branch has to work to get that done. So, and therefore, that's why, whether it's sports betting or anything else, why you're seeing them roll around that. And you'll see that, so, but.
I guess part of it was timing wise, if the legislature could pass something, you would be on the spot to put that on the August ballot as opposed to the November ballot. So is that something you would like to get taken care of before this November?
I'm gonna go back to the original if. Your question. I don't know, Dave, you know. I don't know what they're gonna do on that portion of it. I don't know what the people putting it on the console, or putting it, trying to use the IP to do that. Are they even gonna be able to get it done? I don't know. There's so many unknowns. Pretty early to commit that, and when that would go on. But you know, we looked at it, game plan. Honestly, we're gonna see what we think is the best thing to do. Look, this is a political hot button issue when you start talking about abortion in the state of Missouri. I think we could argue that all day long. Some of it. I don't know. I don't want to say argue. I won't say that anymore. I'm gonna say most people have an opinion on that issue. You're not changing very many opinions, however we do it. You're really not. I mean, you have the group of people that like me, that's pro-life, and we're pretty self-set that way. And I've always said that. I don't hide that. But I think you also have the other people that are pro-choice that believe just as drastically in their view as I do mine. I think you have to understand that. This is not something that's gonna ever be where everybody agrees on this issue. It'll never happen. So.
Governor, can I ask one quick one? Echo Menges, the Edina Sentinel, Northeast Missouri, Knox County.
Okay.
We also have a newspaper in Shelby County, the Shelby County Herald. With your background in law enforcement, we had a highway patrol trooper up there that was shot overnight. Can you just give us some reaction to that, if you've heard anything about it, and just what your thoughts are, if you have a message?
You know, I'm not for sure the details on that, but here, look, law and order. And yes, I'm former law enforcement, so I'm going to be pro law enforcement about most of the time in this room. If you do not have law and order, our whole principle is based on law and order. There's not one person when they leave their home they don't want to feel safe. Not one. I don't care where you live or who you are. I guarantee when you walk out your door, you want to feel like you're safe. All of us do. The only people that keep you safe is law enforcement. Ain't nobody else to do it. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to need law enforcement because our society depends on that for law and order. And we are a law and order society. Regardless of whether you agree with all the laws or whether you think this one or that one, you got to have somebody that enforces the laws. We all agree with that. We should all agree with that. But so anytime I hear an officer going out there doing his duty on whether it is a traffic call, a domestic call, a high risk type, I just feel for him, because the one thing I will tell you about law enforcement, and especially because I've been in the shoes, the vast majority of everybody in this room don't wanna do that job. That's the truth. But you know what? You'll be the first to call when you need it. You will be the first to call when you need it. That's why it's so important. When these guys are willing, these men and women are willing to go out there and risk everything for us. And as silly as it might be to everybody, it's a risk for them. And just like that, whether it's a trooper or it's a deputy, I don't care who it is. And time again, there are senseless killings and attacks on law enforcement that we should never have. But, you know, you don't have to agree with all of them. Just one thing you gotta do is you gotta understand you gotta have it. There's no substitute for that. All right, listen, thanks a lot for giving me the time to come back here. I appreciate you. I think, is this the last one? Is this the farewell?
I think this might be,
Farewell?
this is the last one.
Okay.
Today, you mean?
Yes. The last time I'll do this. This is the last time I'll do that?
This is correct.
No. If you pay for this meal, I know why you're here. All that. I do want to finish up. I've got time to ad-lib a little bit with the media. For all of you, and I know a lot of you are probably from small town. I kind of know some of you were from parts of that. Hey, did you say Shelby County?
I'm in Edina, but we have a paper in Shelbyville as well.
How
So
close is that to Mercer County? Mercer County's up by the Iowa border. You a long way from them? Long way from them?
we're northeast.
Okay, well, I just want somebody to be close to Mercer County. Anybody close to Mercer County? Probably not. You are?
I said our Milan papers.
Sullivan
I'm coming
County.
there someday. I've never been there in my political career, but I received the highest percentage of votes out of Mercer County than anywhere in the state. So I'm coming there to tell them thanks to be able to do that. I've never stepped foot in there that I know of on that, but you know what? When I first came here, when I was sheriff, and I was talking about Dave a second ago. When I was sheriff, Dave at the time, how he worked so well with the media, he actually took crime scene photos for me. He called sheriff and said, I need to come out here and take some, and then it's like, well, what can I say? Well, we got agreed on, to be able to do that. I say that to tell you, I think always having a relationship with the media is a good thing. And if you don't have a relationship with elected leaders in your hometowns or even your state people, because here's what's happening. Most of the time you say, I don't know whether I talk to them or not, I don't know whether I should do that. You should call every one of them, every rep, every senator that you have, and you should sit down with them and you should have a conversation with them. And if it's nothing else, just get to know them. That's what you should do. If we work together, and I'm going to tell you a lot of times we have. I mean, there's some organizations that's never going to like the agenda that I do and probably not going to like me very much. And that's okay. You get that. But the vast majority of people out there, I think in the